Good morning. Are you all doing well with exams? Okay. I hope. Another question. Did you all find your books? Yeah.
Actually, I looked yesterday, I think, not yesterday. I meant last Friday, and I don't know if they were already there. Maybe they weren't there because I didn't see any of my books.
Last Friday, I put them around.
Okay.
Around 12 or so, I think.
Okay. I think I was there in the morning, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah, so they must be still there. Yeah.
Okay.
Are there still more exams going on? I hear about music history these days.
Yeah, the exam was yesterday, I think, for first year bachelor students.
And did it go well?
Yeah. At least for me, that was good.
Okay, very good. You know how you had it as well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And
Good.
we still have theory with Bart
Berlin, yeah. Yes. So it's a busy month, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we will speak about more sixth chords. I have put the chapter here on Teams in the files for those who want to open it on your computer, but I will share it from my screen as well.
他在那里新加了那个文件，宝宝。他现在讲2、3、6、7叫做负正三和弦、负三和弦的那个六和弦的使用。
So tell me, is this readable for you?
你看2级的话就是不重复根音，重复3音尽量的。我看一下。
Okay.
对，重复根音、重复3音都行。
Recapitulation about what we studied before the holidays, because we spoke about the first, the fourth, and the fifth.
然后你看法拉多和法拉瑞就差一个音，所以它也可以是四级的，就是加6音的和弦。之前我跟你讲的。
Can anyone say what you remember still about anything special about those first inversion chords?
告诉你说avoid third, don't repeat third.
We have to double the tonal notes.
We have to double the tonal notes. Very good. And can you say a bit more what those are?
1, 4, 5.
Yeah.
就1、4、5不能重复3音，只能重复根音。
Yeah. Very good. Something else? For instance, where we use those chords? If you compare them, for instance, with fundamental chords, what is the difference in sound, and then what is the difference in use because of it?
As a passing note? Passing chord?
Yes, could be a passing chord, yeah. Doesn't have to be, but it's often like that. You remember why?
你说 it's unstable 说 it's unstable 就不稳定。
Then some notes keep stay at the same position.
I don't understand what you mean.
你真的说 sixth chord is unstable because
there is some notes that stay the same
你
and
说呀
only a
你，
few are changing.
你说六和弦不稳定。
If you put two chords with two different positions next to each other, yes, indeed. But there's another thing. You remember that the sound of a sixth chord is lighter than the sound of a fundamental chord. Yeah, and therefore it's mostly used in the middle of the phrase when there's flexibility and movement in the
录屏了
music,
吗？
and while the fundamental chords are rather used in the cadences, where we need more stability because the music slows down sometimes and needs to be very clear. So that was the main thing. Eh? Of course, this stays the same when we speak today about the second degree. And next week we'll speak about the third and the sixth and the seventh. But this chord we will have to look because it starts to resemble another chord that we know already very well. If you look here at the notes, we have the second degree in Do major, Re, Fa, La. If you make the inversion, you get Fa, La, Re. And you see right away that it looks a lot like Fa, La, Do. It's of course not a surprise because we know that 2 and 4 are from the same function. So they must look alike, they have two notes in common. But Fa, La, Re looks much more like Fa, La, Do than Re, Fa, La used to look like Fa, La, Do, because of the same bass note. So therefore, you will see that these two chords, they will be used or together, and then you can make a melody line with that, or one is replacing the other one. That is new now, because that we didn't have with the other three chords. Now, if we speak about the same doublings, Enora just said, Enora just said that you have the tonal notes to double, and that will not change. So if you have the tonal notes Do, Fa, Sol in Do major, which note can we choose for this chord?
The Fa?
It has to be the Fa. Do you see that's actually the only real option? I mean, there are more options, but this is actually the best option. And then, actually, the comparison between Fa, La, Re and Fa, La, Do gets even stronger, because you know on Fa, La, Do, which is a fundamental chord, we also double the Fa. So if you then write the chord for four voices, nothing has to change except one note. Re will go to Do, and the other notes at the doublings and so they don't change. And that will make them very easy to use together. So the tonal notes that you see here is the best, so the Fa. But sometimes you see in these chords also modal notes being doubled. That means the other two, Re and La, are also possible. But I wrote them here in the order of preference.
你说啥？
So the best one is the first one, when you have the tonal note
我的
doubled,
静音
which
了，
is
要不这
Fa.
样打扰你。
Then you can have Re doubled, which is the fundamental note of the chord. And even La can be doubled, which is the fifth of the chord. You see all of them in the music, but mostly you see the first. That makes it easier. I mean, the doublings are a bit more flexible.
他的意思是可以重复跟三五音都可以，来发拉二级。你看第一个就重复了，
Okay.
哎不对，第一个重复了三音，哎。
Now let's look at some chords. Now, at the moment that we have one of the chords in our connection being a sixth chord, you don't have to worry about a specific connection. You're mostly free. There are no specific connections when sixth chords are involved. It's only between fundamental chords. But still, there are some typical things that you see often in the music, but they're rather free. So, for instance, here, there's like a contrary motion. It's a possibility, yeah? It doesn't have to be like that. Something you see very often.
你看一个声部向上，一个三个声部向下。
intervals of sixths and thirds.
Parallel six 也可是米哆，看法 right
So because the
parallel
bass and the
six。
soprano have a sixth. Now I have a question for you all. In this chord, the second degree of today, why in this chord we have to double the Fa and we cannot double the Re? There's a technical reason on top. If you look at this example.
如果 double right 的话，就是 parallel six parallel eight 了。
The Fa and the Tenor would be a Re. which are the mistakes then we get?
你跟他说 parallel 8 parallel octave parallel octave
parallel octave.
Can you? Yeah, exactly. Where are the parallel octaves?
你告诉他这个 tenor soprano
The
tenor
do re
tenor
Yes,
soprano
very good. And there's another parallel interval besides the octaves. Do you also see it? With the alto.
刚才让你说了吗 alto
out
你说这个parallel fifths 说
parallel fifths.
Parallel fifths as well. Do sol will go to re la.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why
Do sol和re la
in this case it cannot even be possible to think of the re. But at the moment, you're writing and you see that this happens. If one of the chords, and in this case there are 2 chords of 6 chords, it's always easy because every chord has minimum 2 doublings. And then you just change one note of one of the chords and that's it. It's much easier than with fundamental chords where you have just one possibility of doubling. Okay, then there's here a connection with the 6th degree, just to give you some examples. There's a common note even, so it's staying. But it is a free connection.
你自己快速读一遍，从下拉米拉哆。
Okay, now we have to look at something more interesting that we just spoke about. Because of the fact that the 4th degree and the 2nd degree in this inversion are so close, we can start to combine them. So fa la re and fa la do are almost the same.
法拉瑞到
So
哆，
if
法
you
拉
don't
哆，
do
这不是
anything
这
with the
这不这
voices
相当
except
于
that
下
one
属加六
different
音，然后
note,
加到
you
下
can
属，
get some melodic
再到
movement.
属。
So in this first example, you see we first have fa la re, and then soprano's changing into do. Then you get the 4th degree before it's going to the dominant. So then we can have ornamental movement. So let's have a look once at the movement. If you see the do between the re and the si, this is called the passing note. I think you know that. If you would just choose to switch do and re in place, then
法
we
拉哆
can
到 re 不是就是
actually
下
the
属
same
到
melody, but
到
just the
到到
melody
二
is
级
a little
六，
bit
其实
different.
就
We
相当
get
于
do
下
re
属，
si
然后加
instead.
六音，
That's what they
然后
call
再
the
到
escape
属。
tone. Échappé in French. Yeah, and imagine you have like a triple meter that you have more space rhythmically. You can make this kind of
你也
movement.
可以把下属的
Re
五
do re
音
si,
看到了吗？当做那个辅助音
do
re
re
do
do
re
si.
si re do re si，
like for instance a bar of 6/8
或者把
or
六音
6/4,
和五音
9/8,
哆 re do
12/8,
si
this kind of
看
movement.
soprano。
That's what they call the neighbor tone, broderie. So my point is that when you're writing cadences, instead of having chords that don't move so much, every time you see the 4th degree or you're planning to write the 4th degree, you can easily put the 2nd degree next to it as well and make some nice melodic movement already. So like that we will find more and more chords from the same family that look alike, and if you just combine them, you can have movement. And of course, it doesn't have to be soprano. It can be also tenor or alto to do this. Any questions so far? Okay, just interrupt me if something is not clear. Okay, let's go on. Now, at the moment you start combining 4 and 2/6, we have to, of course, watch out for one thing, because you know that at the moment you connect a 4 with a 5.
你看二级到四级到五级，或者四级到二级到五级都可以。
So the moment you also
或者是四
combine
级到五
the
级。
second with it, we have to keep thinking the contrary motion. If you leave out the 4, you don't have to. You're more free. But it's the 4 that demands this. So the moment you add it, we have to think of it. No matter the order. Eh? If first the second comes and then the 4th or the opposite, doesn't matter. As long as one of the 4th is there, we need to do contrary motion.
就二级到五级和四级
And
到五级
one
都
more
要
thing
都
so
要
that
反
you
向
see
进
it
行。
well, the doublings. So when we speak about the tonal note, the 2nd degree needs to double the fa, because that's the tonal note. When you look at the 4th degree in fundamental position needs to double the fa as well, because that's the fundamental note. That's why the same doubling is staying, and it's so easy to combine. You don't have to change much. Okay. Then, now imagine that we do not have the 4th degree, and you just say, I take only the second in combination in the cadence, you're free. You see that you have many possibilities here. You
你
don't
看
have
第
to
一个
worry
就是
about
上
contrary
三声
motion.
部
If
向
you
下，一
want,
个
you
向
can,
上，
but you don't have
这
to.
就是其实就是当下属
The
用。
first one is like the prototype, which is the contrary motion. But if you say, no, I want to use this common note between them, it's also fine. So you can do a free setting. It all depends a bit on the doubling you choose and so actually. So this is something interesting because when we look at the music and we see cadences, very often the composers in the cadence, they don't even use the fourth degree anymore. They use always the second degree because the color is also a bit lighter, it's a bit more beautiful. And then technically is also more free. So the first example is the doubling of the fa that led to this connection. The second example is the doubling of the re. The third example is the doubling of the la. Okay. Now, from now on, we can also start combining two chords that are both in the sixth position.
发到
This
喜
one,
就
of
二级
course,
六和
that
弦
the
发到
dominant
低
can be
音的
also in
就
sixth
是二级
position.
六到五级
You
六
have
发到喜要
like a
减
more
五
free
不要
connection,
增四，
but
你看
also
发
sounds
到
very
喜
nice.
法西是增四。
I have a question. Why is this interval okay and the opposite direction interval is not okay?
Because augmented
Augmented, which interval exactly?
four.
Augmented fourth, yeah. And the other one, how do you call that? Fa si down,
Diminished.
diminished,
Fifth.
diminished fifth, yeah. Do you all see that? It looks the same, but it's actually not the same. If you count the interval, fa mi re do si is 5 notes, so it's the diminished fifth. And if you count up, fa sol la si is only 4 notes, and that's an augmented fourth. And the reason is actually it's the direction that makes it so difficult, because after the C, we have a resolution. Which note is the C in Do major?
7.
Note.
Yeah, so the leading tone. That you, Mikael, you mean the 7 note of the scale, but that's yeah. So the leading tone. So after the C, we need to go to Do.
西
And
一
after
定要
the
到
C,
头，
you
西
would
是
also
三
have
音，
to go
西要
to
往
Do.
上，就
So
是
imagine
向下完之后马上向
you have to make a
奔
big
相反
jump.
方
You
向进
jump
行。
over a river or something, and it's a very big jump, very awkward. And at the moment you're almost about to arrive, you realize you even have to go further because this has to go on. It's not comfortable. While this one is more like falling and coming back up. Actually, Fa C is a
如
big
果
jump,
法
but it
西
comes
向
back
上
up. It's a
法
much
西
more
往下
natural
完再
movement.
上都向上
And that's the
就不
reason
好。
actually why the
所
tritone
以
is not
如
so
果他
good.
跳进向下完就往回
Because actually
往相
what
反
comes
方向走
after.，
当当当，发喜兜不是法西兜。这样
Okay, that's that. Then one more thing we can do with this chord is create
你看它这个吗？
another
四级
cadence.
到二
How
级
do you
六，
call
然后
this
到一
cadence?
级哆来咪，这就是 re 就在里面到加六音，相当于六音一样。法拉哆，然后法拉 re。
The plagal cadence.
Yeah, the plagal cadence. Very good. And we know that already. It's 4-1, but now you can easily add the second in the middle because it's so close. Fa la do, fa la re is almost the same, like we just said. How do you call the re at this moment? The one that I put between the brackets.
Passing note.
A passing note, yeah. And actually, it becomes a whole passing chord now. And in the plagal cadence, very often you have this passing note because the plagal cadences often end on the third, the Picardian third actually, and then the re can go to the mi, do, re, mi. Okay, yeah, there's another example with tonica chords. Similar as before, you see here, the fa is doubled in the first chord. It cannot be the re, in this case, because of the parallel octaves. It would be re, re, do, do, like Lyndon said before, but again, re, la, do, sol, so it's not possible. So therefore, sometimes you have to choose a certain doubling. In this case, it has to be fa. Okay, so then I want to check a score with you. Are there any more questions about the theory, about the chords? So just think about the fact, just recapitulating that in the cadences where we have subdominant and dominant, the subdominant can be 4, like we used to do, but maybe it's a bit less interesting. We can use the second degree sixth instead of the 4, and even better, we can combine the two of them and make some more melody in the soprano. Okay, let's have a look to this score. This is an orchestral score from a symphony by Joseph Haydn.
行吗，宝宝？
And let's see if we can understand the music. Of course, this is orchestral reading, so every staff has a different line. You all have been studying the viola clef. You know how to read this? You did this in the theory class, no?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, shall we try to analyze a few lines and maybe what we could do is that everyone takes a bar and we go in turns so that everyone has a chance to analyze a bar.
来，你先说，这是 F 小调。说。
So, Inora, would you like to start? If you can guess the tonality and see which chords we have in the first bar.
We are in Fa minor.
Yes.
We have the first Fa, La, Do. Do. So it's the first degree.
Good.
Fundamental chord. And then we have La, Si, Sol. We have passing Si, Ré.
Si, Ré, and you can still think there is a Fa, because if you look at the horns, I forgot to tell you, the horns are transposed in F. That means that this Do will sound like a Fa. This is a Fa.
So Si, Ré, Fa, and then Sol, Si, Fa.
Yes, good. Any idea which chords they are?
扫降。
The fourth.
扫降西来发是2级7，扫降西降来发是2级7。
Sol, Si, Ré, Fa is the
second degree， 然后 seven chords，
Wait.
seven chords。
It's a chord we didn't study yet.
告诉他 F minor。
It's the fifth degree of the fifth degree.
可以是属就是它其实相当于就是降西降来发骚，就是下属加6音，下属加6音。
And it's
It's Si bemol, Sol, Si bemol, Ré is not written, and then Fa.
扫降西
Fa.
Then it's
跟他说啊，下属加6音 plus six note。
It's a 7 of.
我觉得this is dominant plus 6 note.
In French, it's une septième d'espèce.
De quel degré? Which
Of the second degree.
Exactly. Yeah. So she says it's a secondary seventh chord on the second degree. Yeah, exactly. Because the Fa is actually staying. We will come to all of those things because there are some special things. But what you have to understand is that actually the whole bar can be considered like one big tonica, but here we have colors of the subdominant, and they are actually ornaments because you have Do, Re, Si, Do. It comes back to the Do, and here La, Si, Sol, La. So these two beats you can consider like an ornament. How do we call, by the way, that we have the Fa in the horns staying so many bars?
你说 pedal 什么叫 pedal 叫什么
pedal?
Pedal, yeah. And then we have to think pedal of dominant or tonica.
pedal tonica 发不是主音吗 tonica 跟他说
Of tonica?
Yeah, of tonica, exactly. So, pedal of tonica, and then if you don't have tonica, a bit of subdominant and back to tonica, which cadence do we get then? Tonica, subdominant, tonica.
The
cadence that doesn't involve a dominant, just a subdominant tonica.
Legal cadence.
It's a legal cadence, exactly. So what I want to say is when you have a tonica pedal, like here, you can count on the fact that you mostly have a legal cadence. Because if the Fa is staying, the Mi Bécard, the Mi natural cannot come. It's blocked because of the Fa staying.
第二小节是法发降拉哆，然后哆发降拉，这不都是主吗？
Okay, let's go to the second bar. Lin, would you
tonic,
take over?
Tonic. It's tonic. It's tonic.
It's tonic.
The first degree.
The first degree.
It's fa la flat do.
La flat do.
Also petal on fa. Also petal.
That's it.
The two is
fa.
Also fa.
Horns.
So one chord only, yeah? That's it. Very good. Then the third bar, Mikael.
Yeah. Third bar, yes. Fa fa si.
It's a bit complicated, but we know already touched this chord in the first bar. The first bar is actually similar.
Oh yeah. Fa fa si so.
发发喜搜，哎，我
First,
降
I
西
need to say the
这还是
chord
那个
yes here.
四级加六音呢，降
Can you
西
say
降来
again?
发嗦，降
I
西
need
降
to
来发
say
嗦，降西
chord
降来
yes.
发
Yeah,
是
can you
下
say
属，
the
然后
notes
加
in
一
the
个
right
三六
order?
音。
If you see Fa, Si, and Sol.
Fa
And
si
Re.
so.
你看到了吗？这里面有降西，有降 re， 看到了吗？然后还有发发，看到了吗？所以降西降 re 发是下属 subdominant， 然后加六音，这里面有骚吗？有骚，你看一开始就有骚，那个 violins 第一个 violins 就有
No,
骚。
let's get confused now.
No, you just have to try to find the order of the notes that you build up thirds, eh? Like Fa, La, Do, it's thirds, eh? Fa, La, Do. You have to do the same with these notes.
然后那个还原咪看到了吗？还原咪它就是这个 secondary dominant， 就是其他级的这个属就叫 second dominant。
Well, Sol, Si, Re is thirds, but the Fa one should be.
不对，不是，它就是最后一拍，第三小节的最后一拍就是
Sol si re fa.
Sol, Si, Re, Fa, of course. That's it. Sol, Si, Re, Fa. So it's again a seventh chord.
因为这是
We'll speak about the seventh later, but that's a seventh chord. It's because of the pedal still, eh? And which degree is that? Sol, Si, Re, Fa. In Fa minor.
Second degree.
Second degree. Very good. And then at the last moment here, he adds Mi natural, Mi Sol. It's the only thing he gives us of the chord.
看到了吗
Which chord do you think he's suggesting?
？Dominant
With two voices.
dominant 哆咪嗦。
是
你看最后还是落到了这个，你看下一小节，第四小节第一拍还是到主。
It's a seventh note of the scale, yeah? Leading tone. And which function do we always have when you have the leading tone?
你说 dominant
Dominant.
Dominant, exactly. So this is the dominant. We only have two notes of the dominant, but because of the leading tone, we
你
know
看
for
咪
sure that it's
是
the
leading
dominant.
tone 到发，
Very
看到了
good.
吗？三
That's
音
it.
向上，然后
Okay,
骚
and then we come to
向
the
上。
fourth bar. Miles, would you have a look?
看这个小节啊，这个
Yes.
小节还原
So it's Fa, Fa,
法西降拉，
Sol, Fa. That's it. Or Fa, Fa, La, Fa.
Fa, Fa, La, Fa. Yeah, exactly.
And so, mm,
到主啊，就是第四小节第一拍是主，然后第二
I'm
拍是
not quite sure how to
法，然
analyze
后
it.
还原
I mean,
西，
Fa, Fa, La, Fa is good if you just would say which degree that is, even if one note is missing.
So it's
这不是
tonic.
还原拉，这
Exactly,
是
it's tonic.
中音符号，那是西
And now we
是
get something that
哆
is a bit complicated
Right,
because you
right.
see C, Bécard,
还西
B
还
natural,
原
La bemol,
right 发
Fa, and Re. And even
Si,
one
si,
more
re,
note that is
fa.
missing.
Yeah.
Could you put them in the
这是
right
这是
order?
重数，因为你看后面第五小节是数，
Si,
看到了吗？
si, fa, la, si.
你跟他说这是
Yeah,
double
Fa, La
dominant
is good, but La, Si is a second, yeah? That's not the
Second
third
or
yet. So
dominant, the two
can you
dominant.
switch it a bit around?
La, la, la,
我跟你说
Maybe
呢
you，can start with the C.
OK, si, si, la, si, fa,
看
la.
到了吗？
Si, Re,
第
Fa,
四小
La. That's
节
it.
第二拍里面有还原
Wait, so it's a
西，
seventh
还有
chord
骚
again?
骚是
Yeah,
哪一
it's
个
the
呀
seventh？ chord again.
我看
Yes,
骚在哪
diminished seventh chord. Si, Re, Fa, La bemol. Yeah. Anyone has an idea what this chord is doing in Fa minor? Because you see it has an alteration of the Si bécard, the B natural. This chord we didn't study yet, but maybe someone already knows it.
你说这是 secondary dominant，不是，等会儿啊 ，diminished seven chords，你说你跟他，我看啊，对，你说 diminished sevenths，你跟他说 full diminished seventh chord。说
Maybe I can give you a hint. If you see
说
in the second violin, C
Sure.
bigard, B natural is going
Sure.
to Do with a
Sure.
half step.
这是 double
C Do, which kind
secondary
of note
dominant nine，
is it then
然
probably
后
if
这
it
是
goes
省
up with
略
a half step?
省略 without roll。
leading
说
tone.
It must be a
说一
leading
下
tone, exactly. But we just said that the leading tone was actually
Secondary
Mi bigard,
dominant.
and that's the real leading tone. So
secondary
this means that this is
dominant
not a
nine
leading tone.
without
Not from Fa minor, but from which tonality is this leading tone?
From Do major. Is that?
From Do major, exactly. So this is a borrowed leading tone, and it's the leading tone means dominant. So this is the dominant chord of the next chord, which is Do, and if you look at the next chord, is the dominant. So this is then what they call the double dominant, the dominant of the dominant.
Okay, yeah.
You have heard of the double dominant before?
No.
In French, they say sang de sang.
Okay.
It's the same idea. So this chord is not part of Fa minor, but it's borrowed from another tonality to give extra quality here.
Okay.
And we will speak about it more often. But like that, you can have many more dominants inside one tonality, because you can have a dominant to all other chords as well.
Okay.
But don't worry about it for the moment. I will come back to it.
Okay.
Okay, and then Gufang, we have bar 5.
这是属六，你骚都看到了吗？
Can you check the chords in
我
bar
看啊，这
5?
是还原
bar five
咪，还原咪都骚，
Do.
这是那什么 dominant， 这是 first inversion。
Fifth chord.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, fifth chord.
Yes.
And there is also a fifth chord.
然后
Then is
第二拍就变成了原位了，
three,
看到了
so
吗？
it's
是
a
哆
half cadence.
哆还原
Very
咪
good.
骚。
Yes.
Can you say something about the position of the bass? Because first there's Mi, then there's Do.
然后
The
中间
position
那
is
个
a sixth chord
中间那个
because
是
it's
K4/6，
mi,
看到吗？哆
Yes.
哆法降拉
mi, do,
，K4/6 是在
so.
那个
Yes, and
那个短
then
的节
is
奏上。
then is returned to the normal fifth chord.
Yeah, why do you think that he returns to the normal fifth chord, the fundamental chord? Why did he not stay on the sixth chord? That we spoke about earlier in the chapter. Where do you use sixth chord and where do you use fifth chords?
Sixth chord can't use in the strong beat. I think.
You can, yeah.
And we usually don't use sixth chord in the strong beat.
Yeah, and another place where we don't use it so often.
Another place.
Anyone can help?
Sorry, I don't know how to illustrate it.
In the cadences?
Yeah, it's because of the cadence. The cadence, we mostly don't have a sixth chord because it's lighter. And you see here, we even have a fermata. We need a strong chord, and therefore we need a fundamental chord. That's why he changed quickly back to the fundamental position, and he didn't stay on the Mi and the bass. And then one more thing, Gufang, you have in the melody sol la sol, and in the second violence mi fa mi. How would you call these little notes? They are not in the chord.
你就就是
This
K6/4。
note. It's a passing note. It's a passing note.
Yeah, almost. But passing would mean that it would go on, that you would have sol la si. But now it's turning back, sol la sol. It's another name when it's going back.
I answered, but I don't know how it is in English.
Yes, I also don't know how to say it in
You know in French maybe, or?
So when
The neighbor note?
Very good, that's a neighbor note. Yeah.
Neighboring，
neighbor 邻居 neighboring
yes, neighbor
note。
note. I got it.
Yeah. Okay, that's very good. So you read it well. Now I'm going to point out a few places. Can we check the bass in bar 9 and 10? You see the second line, si bemol, do, re bemol. How do we call this cadence?
这是
Maybe
中指
this is a
deceptive cadence， 说
Picardy third.
说
no,
deceptive
no, no,
cadence，
no.
就
No, this would be la
是数
natural.
到6级。
La natural.
Suspended?
Can you say again, suspend? What do you mean it's suspended?
说
You mean the
deceptive
meter
cadence，
Broken. It's a 5/6.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, the broken cadence. Yeah, interrupted cadence. Very good. Very
Yes.
good. So instead of si do fa, he makes si do re. So the broken cadence. Yeah. And now let's check. So which functions should they be when you have when you have si do re?
Si, do, si,
Which
si.
functions, like
Right.
dominant or tonica or subdominant or subdominant first? Yeah, and then do,
Dominant.
and then tonica surprise 6 degree. Yeah? Okay. So 5/6. If you remember, the connection is contrary motion. As si goes to la, sol goes to fa, and the bass goes up. So that you know. Now let's have a look at the subdominant. Which chord does he use as subdominant? You see the
告诉
notes
这
C,
是
C,
二级
Re,
的 first
and sol.
inversion， 二级 second degree first inversion， 说呀，
The second one?
Yeah, that's the second one. And then the inversion?
6.
Yeah, sixth inversion. Very good. So what I want to show you is that in the cadence, and this is an important cadence already, he does not use the 4th degree for the subdominant. He replaced it by the 2nd degree in first inversion because it's very close and the sound
这
is
是降
nicer.
西，然后 re sol， 扫降西 re。
Let me show you another place like that. Can you check bar 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14? These two here. Which cadence do we have now? You look at the bass, eh?
那
C,
是
do,
dominant
fa.
seventh to tonic。
Yeah, it's a perfect cadence. So which are the functions we need to see?
dominant seventh to
Subdominant. Dominant tonica.
Perfect, exactly. And now let's see on the subdominant again. Si bemol, sol, re bemol,
Si
si
降
bemol.
来发就是下属，
It's
然后
a
到哆咪
2.
骚降西，
Yeah, it's again the 2nd degree. Yeah? Can you all see that? Now let's have a look at the doubling. Which are the tonal notes of fa minor?
Fa, si, do.
Fa, si, or do. Yeah, which note is possible to double then on the subdominant?
Si.
C. Yeah. Can you see that in the bass there's C, of course, and in the soprano there's also C. So he doubled the bass note actually. Yeah? With the 6th chord now of the 2nd degree, I forgot to tell you earlier, but as a result, you can double the bass note. Eh? With 1/6, 4/6, and 5/6, the one we studied before the holidays, it's mostly not the bass note. And this now it is the bass note. But you don't have to remember that. It's just if you remember the tonal notes as the notes to choose from, you will see what happens. But sometimes it's the bass, sometimes it's not the bass. Then we have tonica here on the fa, but there's something happening in the violin. She plays mi fa, and the second violin plays si la. How do we call that?
沿流音，沿流音，
Because these two notes, they are from the previous chord actually. They stay a bit too long.
A late note.
Yeah, it's a late note. How do we call it officially in music?
In French, it's like a late, un retard.
A retard, exactly. And in English, anyone has an idea?
suspension，
Suspension.
suspension，
Yeah. So it's mostly a chord from a note from the previous chord, or 2 or 3, but
Suspension
stay too
note,
late.
记上。
It's like you have a guest at your home and he doesn't want to go home. He stays with you too long. Yeah. It gives some dissonances. And the music is the same. Yeah. Okay, very good. So, do you see some examples about this in the music? Now, to end, I want to show you some exercises. Wait one moment. There are some longer and shorter ones. I first would like to start with this one. It's page 17. You see here. There's here combinations that you can make of 4 and 2, like we discussed earlier,
这是
so
F
that
大
you
调
can see
降
the
西 re
only
发
note that
四
is
级，
different and the rest will
然后
not
5级是
change.
降西 re 骚，
And they give you here the possible connections. And then as a starting point, they tell you what should be the note from the soprano. So we did this before, right? E is like a closed position, and the fifth on top of the
Fa
bass
在
would mean
soprano
you have to take a fa.
降西 re 发，
If you see a sixth, you mean you have to take a sol, and so on. And like that, you know how to start and how to make the connection.
那个
So
6 就
let's
是代表
do
降
some
西向
practice
上的6度
this
音。
week on only this page. If you have more time, of course, you can have a look at the other exercise already. There are real exercises too, but we should first start with the small one. You know the idea, it's just to practice the connections.
Mhm.
Okay,
So what do we have to do?
page 17.
The whole page?
Yeah, if you have exams, if you're very busy, then we can do it later together. But if you can do it, then do this page.
Okay.
记上，这是作业17页
And。then we will make one of the bigger exercises together next week. Okay, good. Any questions? Does it sound logic to you?
Yeah.
Okay. In case of questions, you always know where to find me. Okay, very good. I let you go. So then we see each other next week. Wish you a good day. Good luck with those who still have exams.
Thank you.
And then take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye bye. Have a good day. Bye bye.